Our people must know the truth and nothing but the truth. France remains as a member of the UN Security Council, and yet France today remains one of the biggest perpetrators of human rights violations in Africa. And everybody is giving it, the world is giving it a blind eye. United Nations. It is a body that's supposed to be the watchdog for human rights violations. France remains the biggest risk to peace and security in Africa today, and nobody is talking about it. France did something absolutely deplorable. Made the former colonies, because they still are colonized, sign a document which they called the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. Dig this. On one hand, we're giving you your independence, but on the other hand, sign this document that you are agreeing to continue to be colonized. So two countries said, no way, Jose, we aren't doing this. Guinea and Mali. The French could not understand it. How could an African country dare not want to be affiliated with France? So in their anger, history tells us that they went into those two countries, took everything that they thought they had brought, proceeded to pour concrete into the sewage pipes, completely devastating the two economies. This was also done as a way of letting the other countries know that should you refuse to sign this document, this is the fate that awaits you. So the rest of the country signed the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization remains in place. What is special about this? The Pact for the Continuation of Colonization said, 1, you shall deposit 85% of your bank reserves with the French Central Bank under the control of the French Minister of Finance. The French government will take all your monies, collectively invest your monies in the French stock market under the French name. And you don't have to know what the returns are. Should you wish to access some of your money, keep in mind that countries are now left with only 15% of their reserves. You have to submit your country's financial report, and if approved, you get to access up to 20% of your deposits from the previous year as a loan at commercial interest rates. I'm going to repeat that. Should you want to access some of your own money, you have to submit your own country's financial report. And if approved, you get it as a loan at commercial interest rate. So you go from having a humongous credit with France to now owing France for borrowing your own money, a loan that you'll never be able to finish paying. They also said, all your minerals discovered and yet to be discovered, French companies have the first right of refusal. You go to those countries today, all major contracts, French companies have the first right of refusal. The water supply, the power supply, the mining fixtures, the oil rigs, roads construction, airports, French companies have the first right of refusal. If anything is left, the people in your country may get it. They also said, your military can only be trained by France. You can only purchase military equipment from France. France shall have military presence in your country and can invade your country without notice if France feels that her interests in your country are being violated. In the past many years, we've had 67 coups in Africa out of 26 countries. Of the 26 countries, the coups, 16 coups, 16 countries were former French colonies. To date, 22 African leaders were assassinated during a coup, documented all of them. France was behind it, simply because France felt they were quote-unquote threatening French interests. Countries are still depositing their funds to France. Do's and don'ts as stipulated by the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. You have given up your financial resources. You have given up control of your natural resources. You have given up your military. What power do you have? Today, because of the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization, France alone, that little bitty country, is taking out of Africa over $500 billion. Over $500 billion. And by the time they finish investing that money into the French stock market, they're realizing trillions of dollars in any given year. Park that. The watchdogs for corruption are saying out of Africa, 50 billion gets out of the continent from corruption. The question I have is, why has it been so difficult for us as Africans to say enough is enough? How long are we going to keep watching this carnage go on and we say nothing? It goes back to the mind. It goes back to that fear. It goes back to that sense of inferiority. And I go back to the diagnosis I made when I went to Washington. That until we black people understand that we are suffering from the legacy of colonization, that we are suffering from the legacy of slavery, that while we may have lost the shackles of in our legs and our hands, the shackles of the mind continue. Until we realize that we are a wounded people and we need healing, nothing about our circumstances is going to change. We are sick people. But to be sick, first you must realize and accept that you're sick. How do you go to the doctor if you don't think you're sick? We are not only in the doctor's waiting room on an outpatient basis. We are not even in the hospital in a general ward. As black people, we are in the intensive care. And we need to realize that. The baby is now born. And her name is the African Continental Free Trade Area. You see, the children of Africa must realize that now we need diapers, we need formula. There are going to be sleepless nights. This baby is going to cry. This baby is going to throw tantrums. We need to be ready to take care of this baby. Africa is on the move. The question is, are the children of Africa ready to step up and take what is rightfully yours? You got to understand, around the globe, as black people, the reason we are so disrespected is because we are poor. Most of us don't own anything. Singularly, while we were given our independence, the one thing that was denied from us is economic liberation. The African heads of states are saying, African wealth belongs to the African children. The African Union defines African diaspora as all people of African descent living outside Africa. The colonizers have been building the Africa that they want. The game is up. You see, you don't go to China and find black people driving the Chinese development agenda. You don't go to Europe. You don't go to Mexico, India, and find black people driving those regions' development agenda. The reality is, you must not, cannot, should not, and golly, will not go to Africa and find non-Africans driving the African continental development agenda. Unless, of course, you the children of Africa.
If you are an African, you really need to watch this. Africa is in trouble.
Sub-Saharan Africa has been fundamental to the global prosperity of the advanced countries. And Africa had a role to play. It has a role as a raw material producer. We will not allow Sub-Saharan Africa to escape that. Okay, we do everything to keep Sub-Saharan Africa where it is, also impoverished. It's absolutely vital for the prosperity of everyone else. So let's get clear about that. Okay, and this means all the economic structures, all the global institutions, and the economics we teach everyone is all designed to keep Africa exactly where it is. And whether it is Europe or US or now China, it's always the same. We need Africa to be impoverished because we need those raw materials and we need them dirt cheap. Okay, so that's the message. It doesn't mean to say that there's nothing Africans can do. Of course there is. This is what it's about. Because if Africa does do something different, I assure you living standards of all those in Europe and North America and Asia is going to fall. Okay? And that is a big price to pay. I assure you that the West is not going to allow that without a big fight. Okay, so the job of many Western academics is to convince Africans they have to keep doing what they're doing. Okay? And to show them it's your fault that you're poor. It's not our fault. It's your fault that you're poor. You know, so this is what we do in academic institutions. We know the basic forces that have caused this underdevelopment. We know it's colonization. We cannot afford to allow Africa to industrialize and start producing manufactures. Okay, so we will do everything to stop that. And I'm going to show you how we actually block that. We had East Asian rapid industrialization processes. So in the earlier period, we had Japan and Korea and Taiwan. Okay, rapid growth, sucking in raw materials from Africa, driving up the prices. After those countries finished industrialization, then Sub-Saharan African growth rate again fell. Sub-Saharan Africa is condemned to this role, just the supplier of raw materials, not a manufacturer. The currencies are collapsing of these countries, and many of them are Sub-Saharan African countries. After colonization ended, we needed new structures to keep these countries where they were. Okay? And the first of those is aid. Okay? We give them aid. Aid for what? Actually, we give them aid to keep repressive regimes in power. That's all. All the hypocrisy about transparency and democracy and bullshit like that, it's all bullshit. But it would go to country after country offering loans. And if the president did not accept the loan, they were killed. It's just economics. It's economic warfare. The rich declare war on the poor. It happens everywhere. It happens in a country. The rich control the government. Of course they do. You really believe you have democracy? Come on. You know, I mean, grow up. Who has all the subsidies and income support? US, Europe. The largest budgets in the world for supporting their farmers are Europe and US. You see, we're keeping them dependent. We're keeping them on a string. This next round of the WTO is designed to block that. To block anyone else getting on top of the ladder.
I have a dream. My four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. will ring. And when this happens, when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man.
In 10 months from now, we will have a new president in the mansion. His son not playing for America. His girlfriend not in Ghana. He ain't got children all over the place. All his family right here. He's been married for 50 years. He's a family man. He's a deacon in the church. He is not a fake pastor. He's a truly decent, honorable, humble man. And when he becomes president, he will lift this country up, and then he will prepare us, the young people, and he will turn it over to us. And together, we will take this country, and we'll move with this country, and Liberia will become what it can be, that sweet land of liberty. Not sweet land of liberty for a few people, not sweet land of liberty for Congo people or country people, but for all Liberians. Some of you ask me, why do you support Joseph Human Boakai for president? Do you know the story about Joseph in the Bible? Joseph's brothers were so jealous of him. They sold him into slavery. But they didn't know what they were doing. They were his destiny helpers, and they didn't know that. And then famine would fall upon the land, and they would go and seeking food. And their brother had now become prime minister, and he would help them. This Joseph that we have, this Joseph who was betrayed by Ellen to put this monster upon us. When I told the Liberian people Kojologo and poison, I told you it will happen. I said, you take the Kojologo, it may be better, but it will make you well. But when you drink the poison, it will kill you. So then we are dying. We are dying. But I come here to give you hope. This flag will fly once again. It will fly once again. And we will build a Liberia where your children and my children can have a quick future, where you don't have to go to America to own a car. You don't have to go to a foreign country to own a house. You can live in this country with the blessings that God has bestowed on us. We can make this country work for every human being in this country. But to do that, you must have the right leadership to do that. Natural resources cannot build a country. A country is built by visionary leadership. Honest leadership. A leadership of integrity. And that is the leadership that Joe Walker will bring to this country. And I have said this. I'd rather not be senator. I would give up my senatorial aspirations in order for Joe Walker to be president if I have to. And you know why? Because as senator, what significant difference without making the Senate if we don't have a decent president in the mansion. But with the right president and Pedro in the Senate, we can change this country. We will make good laws that will benefit all of our people.
Politics, Mr. President, that's everybody's favorite. I don't know why, but our country is becoming too political. The conversation is about 2017. It started so soon. You agree?
I'm concentrating on just carrying out my presidential duties right now.
But my president, we're going to talk about 2017 a little bit, though.
Okay, well, you can talk.
You're vice president. He's worked with you 2 terms, and of course, coming to the end of your term, he declared that he accepted a petition from the people of Louisville County. I know in some way you have shown or expressed your intent to support him, but I just have to ask the question one more time. Where do you stand with your party and, of course, the vice president?
Look, let me be clear. It's more than hinting.
Okay.
Although there are many candidates who may make good presidents, but I say I'm supporting the vice president because I know that he's the most prepared, he's the most experienced, he's the one that's going to ensure continuity, building upon the progress we already have. Now, that's my commitment, and I believe in him. I've worked with Vice President Walker long before I became president and he became vice president.
Okay.
You know, we're working in NGO sector, you know, and there I learned to trust him and to respect him. I still do. And I said, despite who the opposition, the candidates, with all what they may have and all their attributes and whatnot, I say he's the best person.
And you're going to support him?
Absolutely.
And how far are you going to take that support, Madam President?
Wait now, what are you talking about?
I mean, you'll be in the trenches, in the slums, campaigning for him.
Of course.
Of course.
As the law provides.
Within the conference of the law. What do you see as his biggest ability that, encourage or influence your desire to support him?
His biggest... I didn't get that.
What do you think is his biggest leadership ability? What can he bring to the table in your mind?
Experience. And not just as vice president. Don't forget, he's told his story before, and it's a very impressive story. Someone who pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, you know, who worked in institutions, who taught, who served as consultants when he didn't have a job, who worked in the Ministry of Agriculture. And let me just say that I'm also biased because...
Why?
Because he worked with my husband. My husband
really
in the Ministry
him.
of Agriculture. So I told you I know him.
Okay, we'll see what 2017 brings. But my president, we have to, and I must push this. You always say you feel great being the president of a resilient people. Do you feel that Liberia is better off than you met it?
Welcome, 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 welcome. It's a long piece of information for us all to hear. They said knowledge is power. If you don't know, you don't give what you don't know. You can only give what you know. Everything else is for nothing. You have to give what you know. You give what you know. But the biggest question here today, folks, is what I have on the screen for you. Having listened to all those different clips, why is it that Africa continue to suffer, continue to be suppressed by the Western world, knowing now what we know? The involvement of France into Africa. Our national banks in the capital of Paris and other Western nations. When will our world leaders, our African leaders, have a bone in their back to rise up for its people? When are we going to stand as a nation, as a people, as a continent, knowing now what we know? Are you all in it for greed, or are you just in power to continue the suppression, to continue the struggle, to continue with the heavy dagger upon your own people, like a heavy rock you have placed? Knowledge is power. Slavery continues. It's a whole different mind and a whole different set of slavery that is taking place right now. That is mental slavery. That is what Africans are suffering with right now. That is what is keeping Africa underneath the shackles of mental slavery. Has gotten hold of our world leaders. Instead of coming together as a continent, as a people, that no one individual could be poor in Africa. Yet, we allow our natural resources, our nations, to be opened up, not vying in and standing in for the fight that will bring investors and companies to manufacture on our own soil. Instead, they come and steal everything. They embezzle, they squander, and they bring it to the Western world and refabricate, manufacture, and take the peanuts back for us to buy. When will our world leaders, our African leaders, understand that? Knowledge is power. Africa needs economic liberation. Africa needs economic liberation. So is Liberia. We are sick. Yet, we know we are sick, but we don't want a doctor. That is mental slavery. Folks, this midweek is politics and business. Because business is now is a driving force, economic force for the world, and most importantly for Africa. Business, the entrepreneurial sector of Africa, is a driving economy, is a driving engine right now. Business. We understand that. We as world leaders, our people, trusted with power, trusted to make those decisions for us. They steal and squander resources, monies, and bank those monies in foreign banks like Switzerland, USA, Great Britain, Germany. What do you think they are doing with our money? They are trading in. They are profiting with our money. And we could have our own banking systems that is trusted. Why? When are you going to rise up, our leaders, to realize that the Western world's number one strategy and agenda is to divide us? That the more they can succeed in doing that, the more our economic system crumbles. When are we going to do that? Open our eyes. Rise up from your slumber. African leaders, rise up from your sleep. Time is leaving you behind. Time, our biggest enemy. The only thing that all of us have in common, yet it is going fast for some people. For us, it is leaving us behind. We are falling behind the race. We are falling behind the race. Time is important in your business. Time is important in your life. Time is important in everything that you do. time. That is the only commodity that you and I have in common. That is the only commodity that you and the King of England have in common. That is, time is the only commodity that you and the President of the United States of America have in common. What are you doing with your time? What is it? Time is going by. Time is passing by.
Time. Time waits for no one. Time stops for no one. Your excuses will not slow down time. Your indecisions will not delay time. Your complaining will not stall time. And your regrets will not turn back time. So, don't waste your time in anger, regrets, worries, and hate. Because time will not turn back and cry along with you. It's time to let go of the past and stop worrying about the future. Your only time is now. So make sure you spend your time with the right purpose, with the right deeds, with the right emotions, with the right thoughts, and with the right people. Time flies, that's a fact. But you can always spread your wings and soar with time and navigate life the best that you can. Remember, you will never pass this way again. Make it count. Time. Do what it does. Keep moving. This is Julius. Thanks for listening. Please don't forget to like, comment, and share.
Time. Do what it does. Time. And this is what's holding us back. Fear. This is what's holding us back, folks. Fear. Right? This is what's holding us behind. So many people. So many people. Fear is what has held us back. Some of us. But what are you doing? How do you get over that? How do you get over fear? What are you scared of most? What are you doing with that idea, that business, that dream of yours that God has given you? Is it fear that's holding you away? Yes, fear does that. And fear is evil. Fear is not of God. Fear is a strategy that the enemy brings to suppress you, to hold you from taking that leap into the unknown. Nobody wants to step into the unknown. But risk is a fact. Life is a risk. Life is full of risk. So why won't you step into the unknown? I'd rather step into the unknown than not step at all. And after years, I happen to look back and realize I should have done this. I should have done that. Folks, fear. Rise up. Do something with the gift that God has given you. This is the way I have decided to bring the business Midweek Politics talk to you. I'm not here to attack an individual politician. I'm here to help you look at life differently. Look at the essence of life. Look at the importance of life. With all the riches of the world, with all that you have around you, in your bank accounts, your vehicles, your houses, properties, material wealth. At the end of the day, you eat one meal. You lay your head on one pillow. You sleep in one room, on one bed. If you die today, you leave all behind. That is the essence of life. Important. This is why we need to get rid of fear and stop wasting time. Stop wasting time. That's it. You don't know what tomorrow may bring. You don't know what tomorrow may look like for you. The last meal you eat today might be your very last meal. Why are you harboring hate in your heart? Why don't you love the ones that care about you? Why don't you let go of those that accuse you falsely, those that you harbor in your heart, your enemies, those you call your enemies? Why don't you find a space in your heart to let go? Find room in your heart to forgive, because time is too short. Time is too short. And I know that one day time will come when Africa will rise up, even as it is now, but at a whole different, better level, when African leaders will realize and come together under one umbrella, under one voice, and realize that we have the economy of the world in Africa, that we are the driving force behind the world. That has to do with time, because now our African leaders, only few that have backbone in their back, have stood up at the detriment, even if it cost their lives, our African leaders. They have fought in the past. Kwame Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara, the likes, Nelson Mandela, just to name a few. Many of them. But this generation of African leaders need to rise up. They need to rise up. Step up for your people. This is a different way of me bringing you a midweek business. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of the show today. I highly appreciate this, because this is a different week. As I take leave of you, I leave you with these words of another great man of God who knew the importance of time, who taught about time, who counseled world leaders. Listen to his words.
Any piece of legislation that is not in line with God's laws.
The economic programs of the world have been falling apart, and the only system that is yet to be tested on earth is the kingdom of heaven. Why? Because heaven has never been yet accepted by the United Nations. They keep believing that the solutions to earth are on earth. And the problem is, we as humans are not honest. We created the problems that we're trying to solve. And I believe one of the smartest men that ever lived in our lifetime was a man called Albert Einstein. He was a Jew. Albert Einstein, as you know, is famous for his studies in energy. But he made a statement that I still believe is a very important statement. He says, you cannot solve a problem at the same level it was created. Write that down. You cannot solve a problem at the same level it was created. In other words, if you produce the problem, to solve it, you have to actually go to another realm or another level to solve it. Our problem on earth is that all of our problems we created. And then we hire people, call them politicians, and tell them to solve it. But the politician is us. They went to the same schools, they learned the same education, so it makes them smarter. And this is why they can't fix your country any better than you can.
And I believe we have been very, very dishonest with ourselves because we demand from them what we know we ourselves don't have. And if they came from us, how can they have something we don't have? So we complain to them when they can't solve the problem, when in fact we educated them with our educational system, which can't solve our problems either. And so we have this cyclic frustration going on, and that's why the world governments don't know what to do. I listened to all those people on that debate yesterday. I was engrossed in it because they were talking about my talk. They were talking economy. The kingdom of God has not been tested on earth yet. And Jesus said it will be tested. Let me quote where he said it. Matthew chapter 24, write it down, verse 14. He said these words, "And this good news of the kingdom of heaven shall be preached into the whole world," not heaven, into the world, "as a testimony." It shall be tested to all the nations, and then the end will come. Christ doesn't say that the kingdom will be tested after the end comes. He said, when it's being tested, when man understands that his system can't work, when we finally get to the point where we throw our hands up and say, God, I don't know what to do with this. We need help from another place. Then God says, I'm going to let you have a glimpse of my system. And when all the nations admit that his system is better, then he says, I'll come back to earth.
This is how we end today's broadcast. I hope that this piece of our Wednesday broadcast is enlightening, very encouraging to all of you. And I look forward to bringing you another show tomorrow and Friday and Saturday and Sunday here at Talk TV Media Network. My name is Sam Gadu, and I look forward to seeing you in another broadcast. Stay safe, make better use of your time, and follow through your dreams. Blessings.